My friend, let me tell you about a letter that broke my heart and opened my eyes to the greatest tragedy of our time. Picture this moment with me. It's late at night in Cordoba. I'm studying by candlelight when a servant arrives at my door. He carries a letter sealed in gold, delivered by the fastest horse money can buy. The letter is from Marcus, the richest merchant in all of Al-Andalus, a man whose ships controlled trade across the Mediterranean, a man whose warehouses overflowed with goods from distant lands, a man whose very name inspired respect in every market from Cordoba to Cairo. But when I break the seal and read his words, I discover something that leaves me paralyzed. This man, who has everything, is begging me for help. Not for his body. His health is excellent. Not for his business. His profits are soaring. Not for his family. They lack nothing. He is begging me to help him sleep. "Rabbi," he writes, "I've achieved everything I once dreamed of. And yet I lie awake every night, my mind racing with fears I can't name. My stomach twists with an anxiety I can't explain. My hands tremble at the thought of losing what I've spent a lifetime building." He continues, "I've tried everything money can buy, the finest wines to calm my nerves, the most expensive doctors to cure my insomnia, the best advisors to protect my wealth. Nothing works." And then comes the sentence that still haunts me. "I have everything a man could want, except the one thing I need most. Peace. Can you help me find what money cannot buy?" Do you feel the weight of his despair? This isn't just Marcus's story. This is the story of every successful man who discovers that achievement without inner peace is nothing but a sophisticated torture. How many nights have you lain awake, your mind spinning with worries that multiply faster than your wealth? How many times have you reached a goal only to find that success brought new anxieties instead of the satisfaction you expected? How many moments have you sat at home, surrounded by everything you worked so hard to gain, yet felt more restless and empty than when you had nothing? Marcus had fallen into the same trap that captures almost every ambitious man. He thought external success would create inner peace. He believed that if he accumulated enough, conquered enough, secured enough, his mind would finally be quiet. But the opposite happened. The more he gained, the more he had to protect. The more he conquered, the more he feared losing. The more successful he became, the more anxious he felt. This is what I call the paradox of prosperity. The very success you think will bring peace becomes the source of your greatest anxiety. Marcus's letter forced me to confront a truth that forever changed my understanding of human nature. Peace is not the reward for success. Peace is the foundation that makes success meaningful. Without peace, every achievement feels empty. Without peace, every possession feels like a burden. Without peace, every success feels built on quicksand. But here's what I discovered that night, as I prepared to write Marcus back, something that will transform your understanding of what it means to be truly prosperous. Peace is not something you find once you have enough. Peace is something you develop while you build what you have. The question isn't whether you can afford to find peace. The real question is whether you can afford to keep living without it. Let me tell you about the letter I wrote back to Marcus, and why it transformed not only his life, but also my own understanding of true prosperity. I could have given him quick advice. I could have prescribed herbs for sleep, or told him to hire more guards for his fortune. But Marcus's problem wasn't medical or practical, it was spiritual. His letter revealed more than insomnia. It revealed a man whose soul had become disconnected from his purpose. A man whose heart had become disconnected from his wealth. A man whose mind had become disconnected from anything beyond accumulation. So I wrote him a letter that began with words I have never forgotten. "My dear friend, you wrote asking if I can help you find peace, but you're asking the wrong question. The right question is, are you ready to understand what peace truly is? I went on. You think peace is the absence of problems, but peace is the presence of understanding. You think peace comes from having enough security, but peace comes from knowing that true security isn't external, it's internal. Marcus had made the same mistake that steals sleep and robs joy from successful men everywhere. He confused having with being. He thought if he had enough wealth, he'd be safe. He thought if he had enough success, he'd be fulfilled. He thought if he had enough possessions, he'd be at peace. But having and being are completely different things. You can have wealth without being secure. You can have success without being fulfilled. You can have possessions without being at peace. In my letter, I explained to Marcus what I'm about to explain to you. Peace is not something you acquire. Peace is something you uncover. It's not something you build. It's something you discover. At the core of every human being, including you, there is a place of unshakable calm, a center that cannot be disturbed by external circumstances, a source of security that does not depend on your bank account or your business success. But most men never find this place because they search for peace in all the wrong directions. They look for it in their achievements instead of their understanding. They look for it in their possessions instead of their perspective. Marcus had spent 20 years building external security while completely neglecting internal security. He built a fortress of wealth around his body while leaving his soul defenseless against fear and anxiety. My letter continued. The peace you seek isn't hidden somewhere in your future success. It's not waiting for you in your next achievement. It's available to you right now, in this very moment, regardless of your circumstances. I told him about a practice I call hit bone nut. Deep contemplation that connects you to the source of all peace. Not meditation to escape reality, but reflection to understand reality more deeply. I explained that when you see your true place in the universe, when you see yourself, your wealth, and your success in proper perspective, anxiety naturally dissolves. Not because you stop caring about your responsibilities, but because you stop being enslaved by them. The letter I wrote Marcus that night became the foundation for everything I would later teach about the relationship between prosperity and peace. Because I realized that night, the richest people are not the ones who have the most money. The richest are the ones who have learned how to be at peace with the money they already have. Marcus replied 2 weeks later. His answer was just 4 words. When do we begin? Are you ready to ask the same question? Marcus came to see me 3 days after I received his second letter, and the very first thing he said completely changed the way I approach helping successful men find peace. Rabbi, he began, I've spent my whole life learning how to acquire everything money can buy, but I never learned what money cannot buy. I think that's why I'm so unhappy. His honesty was striking. Here was a man who had mastered the art of external acquisition, but was utterly ignorant of internal cultivation. Marcus had discovered what every anxious achiever eventually discovers. There is an entire category of treasures no amount of money can buy. And without those treasures, all the money in the world feels useless. Let me show you what money cannot buy, because understanding this will forever change how you think about prosperity. Money cannot buy peace of mind. You can purchase the best security systems, hire the finest bodyguards, build the strongest vaults, but you cannot buy the inner calm that comes from knowing your place in the universe and trusting in something greater than your own ability to control circumstances. Money cannot buy genuine relationships. You can pay people to be near you, to serve you, even to flatter you. But you cannot buy the deep connection that comes from being known and valued for who you are, not for what you own. Money cannot buy meaning. You can acquire every material good you ever wanted, achieve every external goal you ever set, but you cannot buy the sense of purpose that comes from understanding why you are here and what you are meant to do with your life. Money cannot buy wisdom. You can hire the smartest consultants, pay for the finest education, access the most exclusive information, but you cannot buy the understanding that changes the way you see yourself, your circumstances, and your choices. Most importantly, money cannot buy time, health, or the ability to undo the consequences of living too long without these treasures. Marcus had spent 2 decades accumulating everything money could buy, while completely neglecting everything money could not buy. The result was a man rich in possessions, but bankrupt in the very things that generate true satisfaction and joy. But here is what I taught Marcus that day, and what I want you to understand. Although money cannot buy these treasures, they are not impossible to obtain. They are simply acquired by different methods than the ones you use to build wealth. Peace is gained through understanding, not accumulation. Relationships are built through authenticity, not transaction. Meaning is discovered through reflection, not achievement. Wisdom is developed through contemplation, not information gathering. The beautiful truth is that these treasures cost no money, but they do require investment. They require investing time to understand yourself and your place in the world. They require investing energy to build genuine connections with others. They require investing attention to discover what truly matters beyond just making money. Marcus asked me a question that revealed just how ready he was to begin this different kind of investment. Rabbi, if I devoted the same focus and persistence to acquiring these treasures that I've given to acquiring wealth, what would my life look like? The answer transformed him completely, and it can transform you too. But first, you must make the same honest evaluation Marcus did. What percentage of your time and energy are you currently investing in the things money cannot buy? If the answer makes you uncomfortable, then you are ready for what comes next. Marcus told me something during our second meeting that revealed the true cost of living without peace. Rabbi, I have become a prisoner of my own success. Every achievement has become another set of bars in my cell. His words hit me like a physical blow because I recognized the truth in them immediately. Marcus had discovered what many successful men discover far too late. When you build your sense of security on external factors, those external factors become your sources of insecurity. When you tie your peace of mind to circumstances beyond your full control, you hand it over to forces that can change at any moment. Let me show you how this prison is built, because understanding it is the first step toward escaping it. The first bar is installed when you begin measuring your worth by your wealth. Once your identity becomes tied to your net worth, every fluctuation in your finances feels like a fluctuation in your value as a human being. Marcus had fallen completely into this trap. When his business was thriving, he felt valuable and confident. When it struggled, he felt worthless and anxious. His emotional state had become a hostage to market conditions he could never fully control. The second bar is installed when you start believing that having more will make you secure. This creates what I call the never enough syndrome. No matter how much you accumulate, it never feels like enough because you're trying to use external possessions to satisfy an internal need for security. Marcus had enough wealth to live comfortably for multiple lifetimes. But because his sense of security came from having rather than being, he never felt like it was enough. Every new acquisition simply raised the bar on what he thought he needed to feel safe. The third bar is installed when you begin fearing loss more than enjoying possession. Marcus had reached the point where he could no longer enjoy what he had because he was too afraid of losing it. Every pleasure was poisoned by the fear that it wouldn't last. And the final bar, the one that locks the prison shut, is installed when you convince yourself that you cannot be happy or at peace until your external circumstances are perfect. This is the cruelest bar of all, because it means you never give yourself permission to experience peace in the present moment. For years, Marcus had been telling himself he would finally relax and enjoy life when his business was completely secure, when he had eliminated every possible risk, when he had accumulated enough to guarantee his family's future forever. But that day never came, because it cannot come. There is no external security that can eliminate all risks. There is no amount of wealth that can guarantee the future. There is no control you can have over inherently unpredictable circumstances. The prison of constant worry is not built by your circumstances. It is built by your beliefs about what you need in order to feel safe, protected, and at peace. Marcus asked me something that revealed just how desperate he was. "Rabbi, is it even possible to be successful and at peace at the same time? Or must I choose between achievement and serenity?" My answer shocked him. Not only is it possible to have both, it is impossible to have lasting success without peace. Anxiety destroys judgment. Fear sabotages decisions. Constant worry drains creativity and ruins relationships. The most successful people are not those who worry the most about success. They are those who have found a way to pursue success from a state of inner calm rather than inner panic. That day, I taught Marcus the first principle of peaceful prosperity. The goal is not to eliminate all risks and challenges. The goal is to develop the inner strength and wisdom to handle whatever risks and challenges arise. How long have you been building your prison? And how ready are you to begin dismantling it? Marcus confessed something to me during our third meeting that revealed the deepest irony of his situation. "Rabbi, I thought wealth would make me feel more secure. Instead, it has made me feel more vulnerable than I have ever felt in my life." His confession opened my eyes to one of the most destructive lies successful people tell themselves, that accumulation leads to security. In reality, the opposite is often true. Let me show you why having more often creates more fear, not less. When you have little to lose. When you have much to protect. Every asset becomes a potential source of anxiety. Every possession becomes something that can be taken from you. Marcus had begun his career as a small merchant, with a cart and a few goods. At that time, his biggest concern was earning enough for the next meal. It was simple and manageable. 20 years later, he owned ships, warehouses, trade routes, and properties across 3 countries. Now his worries multiplied exponentially. He worried about pirates attacking his ships. He worried about fires in warehouses. He worried about political changes affecting his trade routes. He worried about economic crises devaluing his properties. Success had not eliminated his problems. It had multiplied and complicated them. But the deeper issue was not the multiplication of potential problems. The deeper issue was what Marcus had done with his identity in the process of building his wealth. When you are poor, you know you are more than your possessions because you have almost nothing. Your identity is not tied to your assets because they are minimal. You see yourself as a human being who happens to own a few things, but as you accumulate more, a subtle and dangerous shift occurs. You begin to define yourself by what you own. You begin to measure your worth by your wealth. You stop being a person who has possessions and become your possessions. This shift is what turns assets from tools into sources of anxiety. When your possessions become your identity, any threat to your possessions becomes a threat to your existence. Marcus had completely lost the ability to separate himself from his wealth. He was no longer Marcus, who happened to own businesses. He was his businesses. He was no longer Marcus, who happened to have assets. He was his assets. That's why every market fluctuation felt like a personal attack. That's why every business challenge felt like an existential threat. That's why every potential loss felt like total destruction. That day, I told Marcus something that completely changed his relationship with wealth. Your possessions are not you. Your achievements are not you. Your wealth is not you. You are the consciousness experiencing having possessions, achieving things, and building wealth. When you remember that you are the observer of your circumstances rather than the circumstances themselves, you can enjoy your wealth without being enslaved by it. You can pursue success without fearing failure. You can build security without becoming insecure. Marcus stared at me in silence for several minutes. Finally, he said, "You're telling me I've been afraid of losing something that was never really me." "Exactly," I replied. "And that is why peace cannot be found through accumulation. Peace comes from remembering who you truly are behind everything you own." That afternoon, I taught Marcus a practice that would forever transform his relationship with his possessions. A practice that allowed him to enjoy his wealth without being controlled by it. A practice you too can learn, if you are ready to discover who you are beyond what you have. Marcus described his nights to me in detail, and what he shared revealed why so many successful men can buy everything except sleep. "Rabbi," he said, "the moment my head touches the pillow, my mind becomes a battlefield. I review every decision I made that day, questioning if it was the right one. I replay every conversation, wondering if I said the wrong thing. I project into the future, imagining every possible disaster that could destroy what I've built." His description was painfully familiar. I had heard similar accounts from dozens of wealthy men who had come to me for help with what they thought was insomnia, but which was really anxiety disguised as insomnia. Marcus's nights had become a torment of mental repetition. The same worries circled endlessly in his mind, like a wheel he couldn't stop spinning. What if the economy collapses? What if my competitors undercut my prices? What if my top suppliers abandon me? What if my ships are lost at sea? What if my investments fail? What if my family becomes a target because of my wealth? Each question generated 10 more. Each fear spawned several new fears. By midnight, Marcus wasn't just reviewing real problems. He was inventing potential catastrophes that had never crossed his mind during the day. But here's what Marcus didn't understand about his sleepless nights, and what most anxious entrepreneurs fail to recognize. The problem isn't the questions themselves. The problem is the mind that asks them. Marcus had trained his mind to be a problem detection machine. His daily success depended on spotting potential problems before they became real crises. His ability to anticipate challenges and prepare for difficulties had made him incredibly successful in business. But the same mind that makes you successful during the day can destroy your peace at night if you don't know how to quiet it when its vigilance is no longer useful. Marcus had never learned the difference between productive worry and destructive worry. Productive worry leads to planning and action. Destructive worry leads to repetitive anxiety that solves nothing and disturbs everything. Productive worry asks, what are the real challenges I'm facing, and what concrete steps can I take to address them? Destructive worry asks, what terrible things might happen, and how would I handle them if they did? The first question leads to solutions. The second leads to sleepless nights. I taught Marcus something that transformed his relationship with his own mind. Your thoughts are not you. You are the consciousness that observes your thoughts. When you understand this distinction, you can choose which thoughts to engage with and which to let pass. Marcus looked confused. How can I choose my thoughts? They just happen to me. I smiled. You're confusing thoughts that appear with thoughts that control you. Thoughts arise automatically. That's normal. But you can choose whether to follow them down the tunnels of anxiety or simply observe them and return your attention to something more peaceful. That night I taught Marcus a practice that would revolutionize his sleep and transform his peace of mind. A practice rooted in the ancient wisdom of Hitbonenut, contemplative meditation that connects you to the source of true calm. Instead of fighting his anxious thoughts or trying to suppress them, Marcus learned to observe them with distance. Instead of being a victim of his mind's endless questioning, he became a witness to its activity. The shift was remarkable. Within a week, Marcus was sleeping through the night for the first time in months. Within a month, he had developed the ability to quiet his mind whenever he chose. But the deepest transformation wasn't in his sleep patterns. It was in his realization that peace had always been available to him. He had simply never learned how to access it. Are you ready to learn what Marcus learned? Are you prepared to transform your relationship with your own mind? Marcus then asked me a question that made me stop in my tracks. Rabbi, I've achieved everything I set out to achieve, so why do I feel like a failure? His question revealed one of the most poignant ironies of human ambition. You can succeed at everything you thought you wanted and still feel as though you've failed at what truly matters. Marcus had built a trading empire, accumulated vast wealth, earned the respect of his peers, and secured his family's financial future for generations. By every external measure, he was extraordinarily successful. But success had brought him face to face with a devastating realization. None of his achievements had filled the inner void. None of his accomplishments had satisfied his soul's deeper hunger. None of his outward victories had created the inner peace he truly sought. This is what I call the success paradox. The more you achieve without understanding your deeper purpose, the emptier your achievements feel. Marcus had been chasing success for 20 years without ever asking why he wanted to be successful. He had been accumulating wealth without ever considering what he hoped wealth would do for his soul. He had been building an empire without ever questioning whether that empire served his deepest needs. The result was a man who had everything he thought he wanted and nothing he truly needed. Let me show you what happened to Marcus, because it happens to nearly every ambitious person who fails to understand the difference between success and significance. Marcus confused goals with purpose. Goals are external targets you aim for. Purpose is the inner reason that makes reaching those goals meaningful. When you have goals without purpose, achieving them feels empty, because you realize you never knew why you were chasing them in the first place. Marcus confused busyness with significance. He filled his days with activities that generated wealth, but he never asked if those activities were generating the kind of life he actually wanted to live. When you're busy without being significant, success feels empty, because you realize you've worked tirelessly to build a life that doesn't satisfy you. Marcus confused external validation with internal value. He had built his entire sense of worth around what others thought of his achievements, not what those achievements meant to him personally. When your worth depends on external validation, even great success feels insufficient, because you're always left wondering if you've done enough to earn the respect and admiration you crave. Most devastating of all, Marcus confused accumulation with fulfillment. He thought that if he acquired enough wealth, enough status, enough security, he would automatically feel fulfilled. But accumulation and fulfillment are completely different. You can accumulate endless external things and still feel empty inside if those things are not connected to your deepest purpose and values. That day, I taught Marcus the most important distinction he would ever learn: the difference between success and significance. Success is achieving what you set out to achieve. Significance is achieving something that matters beyond yourself. Success is reaching your goals. Significance is making sure your goals are worth reaching. Success is building wealth. Significance is building wealth in a way that strengthens your character and serves your community. Success is being recognized by others. Significance is becoming someone truly worthy of recognition. Marcus had achieved success, but completely neglected significance. He had reached every goal, but had never asked if those goals aligned with his deepest values and purpose. "Rabbi," he said after I explained this distinction, "how do I find significance? How can I make sure my success serves something greater than just my own accumulation?" My answer would change his life forever, and it can change yours too. But first, you must answer the same question Marcus had to face. What would success look like if it were connected to your deepest sense of purpose and meaning? Marcus came to our fourth meeting with a confession that revealed just how ready he was for transformation. "Rabbi, I now realize that my mind has become my enemy. It was meant to serve me, but instead I serve it. How can I take back control?" His question showed me that Marcus had discovered the fundamental truth about inner peace. Peace is not something that happens to you. Peace is something you create with your mind. Most people think peace means the absence of challenges or the presence of perfect circumstances. But true peace is something far more powerful. It is the ability to remain calm and centered no matter what is happening around you. Marcus had spent years trying to create peace by controlling his external circumstances. He hired guards to protect his wealth, diversified his investments to reduce risk, and developed contingency plans for every possible scenario. But external peace is fragile and temporary. There will always be new challenges, unexpected problems, and circumstances beyond your control. If your peace depends on everything going according to plan, you will never have lasting peace. The peace I taught Marcus that day is different. It's what I call inner peace, the calm that comes from understanding how your mind works and learning how to guide it skillfully. Let me show you how to build this kind of peace, because it is the foundation of all genuine prosperity. The first step is understanding that your mind has two basic functions: thinking and awareness. Most people confuse these functions, but they are completely different. Thinking is the constant flow of thoughts, worries, plans, and judgments that run through your awareness. Awareness is your ability to observe that flow without being swept away by it. Marcus had become completely identified with his thoughts. Every anxious thought felt like absolute truth. Every worry felt like a real crisis. Every fear felt like a genuine threat demanding immediate attention. But I taught him to step back and become an observer of his thoughts instead of a victim of them. When an anxious thought arose, what if I lose everything? Instead of instantly believing it and turning it into worry, Marcus learned to notice it. I'm having the thought that I might lose everything. That simple shift created space between Marcus and his anxiety. Instead of being anxious, he became someone who observed anxiety. Instead of being his thoughts, he became the awareness of his thoughts. The second step is learning to direct your awareness intentionally, instead of letting it be pulled along by whatever thought shouts the loudest. Marcus's mind was like a wild horse, running wherever it wanted and dragging him into an exhausting ride. Through the practice of hit-bone nut, contemplative meditation, he learned to become the rider instead of the passenger. Hit-bone nut is not about emptying the mind or stopping thoughts. It's about choosing deliberately and deeply what to think about. Instead of letting your mind wander aimlessly through worries and fears, you focus it intentionally on truths that create peace and wisdom. I taught Marcus to spend time every morning contemplating fundamental truths, the vastness of the universe and his small yet significant place in it, the incredible complexity and beauty of creation around him. The fact that he was part of something far greater and more magnificent than his personal worries. This practice didn't eliminate his challenges or solve all his problems, but it gave him perspective that made his challenges manageable and his problems solvable. When you regularly connect your mind to the bigger picture, to the wonder and mystery of existence itself, your daily worries naturally shrink down to their proper size. Marcus discovered that peace is not something you find when your problems disappear. Peace is something you cultivate by connecting to something greater than your problems. Rabbi, He said after 2 weeks of practicing Hitbone Nut, "I still have the same business challenges, but they no longer control my inner state." How is this possible? The answer revealed the deepest secret about peace and prosperity. Let me teach you exactly what I taught Marcus about Hitbone Nut, the practice that turned his sleepless nights into restful sleep and his anxious days into calm productivity. Hitbone Nut is not meditation, as most people understand it. It is not about emptying the mind or reaching some mystical state of consciousness. Hitbone Nut is reflective contemplation that connects you to the source of all peace and wisdom. The word itself comes from the Hebrew root bina, meaning understanding. Hitbone Nut is the practice of using the mind to reflect so deeply on truths that they transform how you feel and how you live. Marcus was skeptical at first. "Rabbi, I spend all day thinking about my business. How will more thinking bring me peace?" I explained the difference. Your business thinking is reactive. You respond to problems and chase opportunities. Hitbone Nut is reflective. You contemplate truths that put everything else into perspective. Your business thinking makes you smaller, more worried, more focused on what you might lose. Hitbone Nut makes you larger, calmer, more connected to what you can never lose. Here's how I taught Marcus to practice Hitbone Nut and how you can begin transforming your peace of mind today. Every morning, before checking his business concerns or reviewing investment reports, Marcus spent 15 minutes in contemplation. He sat quietly and focused his mind on a fundamental truth. I am part of an infinite, intelligent universe that has been unfolding for millions of years. My challenges today are real, but they are temporary and small compared to the vastness of creation. This wasn't about illusions or positive affirmations. It was a rational reflection on the real scale of reality. Marcus was training his mind to see his daily worries in their proper perspective. I also taught Marcus to regularly contemplate the incredible complexity and beauty of the world around him, the precise orbit of the planets that makes life possible, the intricate design of a single leaf, the perfect balance of elements that allows his body to function. This practice wasn't about escaping his responsibilities. It was about connecting to the intelligence and order underlying all existence, including his own life and work. When you regularly connect to the wonder of creation, your mind naturally relaxes. You stop feeling the need to control everything because you remember you are part of a system far more intelligent and capable than your individual understanding. The deepest level of Hitbone Nut involves contemplating your place in the divine plan, not in a religious way that demands specific beliefs, but in a rational way that recognizes the purpose of existence itself. Marcus learned to ask, if I am part of an intelligent universe, what is my purpose within it? How can my wealth and success serve something greater than my own accumulation? This wasn't abstract philosophy. It was practical wisdom that gave meaning to everything he did. When Marcus realized that his prosperity could serve a greater purpose, supporting his community, sustaining his family, creating opportunities for others, his work became spiritually fulfilling instead of merely financially profitable. Every night, before sleeping, Marcus practiced gratitude-based Hitbone Nut. Instead of replaying his problems and worries, he contemplated everything he had to be grateful for: his health, his family, his opportunities, and even the challenges that were helping him become stronger and wiser. This practice completely transformed his sleep. Instead of his mind spinning with anxiety, he settled into appreciation and peace. After a month of daily Hitbone Nut, Marcus told me something that revealed the depth of his transformation. "Rabbi, I still have the same business, the same challenges, even the same competitors. But inside, I am a completely different person." How is that possible? The answer is simple. Peace doesn't mean changing your circumstances. Peace means changing your relationship with your circumstances. And that shift happens in your mind, through practices like Hit Bone Nut that connect you to sources of strength and wisdom far greater than your personal worries. Are you ready to begin this practice? Are you prepared to discover the peace that has always been available to you? Marcus came to me with a question that revealed how deeply his identity had become entangled with his possessions. Rabbi, when I try to describe myself, the first things I mention are my businesses, my properties, my achievements. Who am I if you take all that away? His question exposed the root cause of his anxiety. He had forgotten who he was beneath everything he owned. This is the deepest trap successful people fall into. You begin as someone who happens to have some money, but gradually, subtly, you become your money. You begin as someone who happens to own a few things, but eventually, unconsciously, you become your things. When that happens, any threat to your possessions feels like a threat to your existence. Any loss of wealth feels like a loss of yourself. Any business failure feels like a personal annihilation. Marcus had completely lost touch with his essential identity, who he was as a human being, apart from all his external achievements and accumulations. That day, I gave Marcus an exercise that completely changed his relationship with himself. An exercise you can do right now to rediscover who you are beyond what you have. Close your eyes, I told him. Imagine you have lost everything, every business, every property, all your wealth. You have nothing but the clothes on your back and your basic health. Who are you in that moment? Marcus sat in silence for several minutes. When he opened his eyes, there were tears on his face. I don't know, he whispered. I've been so focused on building my external identity that I lost touch with my internal one. That was the turning point. Marcus discovered he had no sense of himself beyond his achievements and possessions. His entire identity had become external. But here's the beautiful truth I shared with Marcus that day. Your essential self, who you really are, can never be lost or taken away because it does not depend on external circumstances. You are the awareness that experiences having money, not the money itself. You are the awareness that observes your achievements, not the achievements themselves. You are the being that perceives your thoughts and feelings, not the thoughts and feelings themselves. This essential self, your core awareness, is completely independent of your circumstances. It was there before you acquired anything, and it will remain after you lose everything. When you remember this truth and reconnect with this deeper identity, something extraordinary happens. You can enjoy your possessions without being possessed by them. You can pursue success without being enslaved by it. You can build wealth without being defined by it. I taught Marcus a daily practice to reconnect with his essential identity. Every morning, he spent 5 minutes simply sitting in silence, observing his breath, his thoughts, and his sensations without identifying with any of them. He practiced thinking. I notice thoughts about my business, but I'm not my thoughts. I notice feelings about my wealth, but I'm not my feelings. I notice sensations in my body, but I'm not my body. I am the awareness that is conscious of all these experiences. Indeed, this practice was not philosophical speculation. It was practical training to remember who he really was, beneath all the external identities he had accumulated. Within a few weeks, Marcus experienced a transformation that surprised him. His business challenges no longer felt like personal attacks. Market fluctuations no longer dictated his mood. The success or failure of his projects no longer defined his sense of worth. He was still fully engaged in his work and committed to his success. But he was no longer enslaved by either his achievements or his failures. Rabbi, he told me after 2 months of practice, I feel like I've lived my whole life wearing a costume I thought was my real body. Now I've taken the costume off, and I remember who I really am underneath. Marcus had rediscovered his essence, and from that foundation of knowing who he truly was, he could build genuine prosperity. prosperity that enriched his life without consuming his identity. That same rediscovery is available to you. The question is, are you ready to remember who you are beyond what you have? Marcus asked me something during our 6th meeting that revealed how ready he was for the deepest level of transformation. Rabbi, if God allowed me to accumulate this wealth, what does he want me to do with it? His question showed me that Marcus had moved beyond simply desiring personal peace. Now he sought to understand how his prosperity could serve a purpose greater than himself. This is the shift that turns external success into internal fulfillment. When you stop asking, how can I get more? And start asking, what should I do with what I have? Marcus had spent 20 years focused entirely on accumulation. Now he was ready to explore the deeper question of purpose. I shared with Marcus something that would revolutionize his understanding of wealth. Prosperity is not just a reward for your efforts, it is also a responsibility for your choices. The question is not whether you deserve your wealth. The question is what your wealth is meant to accomplish through you. That perspective changed everything for Marcus. Instead of seeing his money as something to be accumulated and protected, he began to see it as something to be stewarded and applied wisely. Instead of viewing his success as proof of superiority, he began to see it as evidence of his opportunity to serve. Instead of treating his wealth as an end in itself, he began to recognize it as a means to ends far more meaningful than mere accumulation. I taught Marcus to practice what I call contemplation of purpose, regular reflection on how his resources could serve the divine plan for creation. Each week, Marcus spent time asking himself, how can my wealth create opportunities for others? How can my success contribute to my community? How can my resources be used to solve problems and meet real needs? These were not abstract questions. They led to concrete actions that transformed both Marcus's business and his sense of purpose. Marcus began offering interest-free loans to promising young entrepreneurs who reminded him of himself as a boy. He formed partnerships with artisans and farmers, helping them reach larger markets and ensuring they received fair payment for their work. He created a fund to support scholars and teachers, recognizing that wisdom and learning were treasures at least as valuable as gold and silver. But the deepest change was not in what Marcus did with his money. It was in how those intentional actions transformed his relationship with wealth and his sense of inner peace. When your prosperity serves a purpose greater than yourself, several remarkable things happen. Your wealth stops being a source of anxiety and becomes a source of satisfaction. Instead of worrying about losing what you have, you focus on using what you have with wisdom and meaning. Your success stops being about proving your worth and becomes about expressing your values. Instead of accumulating to impress others, you accumulate to serve others. Your achievements stop being finish lines and become starting points. Instead of treating each success as an end point, you see each accomplishment as a new opportunity for greater impact. Most importantly, your prosperity becomes sustainable in a way mere accumulation never could. When your wealth serves your deepest purpose, growing it feels meaningful instead of compulsive. Marcus discovered that by aligning his prosperity with divine purpose, his business actually became more successful, not less. Customers preferred doing business with someone whose values they trusted. Employees worked harder for someone whose mission they believed in. Partners sought him out because they knew he would treat them fairly and honorably. But the greatest reward was not external success. It was inner peace. Marcus finally felt that his life made sense. His wealth had meaning. His work had purpose. His achievements contributed to something greater than his own accumulation. Rabbi, Marcus told me after 6 months of purposeful prosperity, I always thought serving God meant giving up worldly success. I never imagined worldly success could be a way of serving God. That realization transformed not only Marcus's wealth, but his entire experience of being alive. What would be the purpose of your prosperity? What meaning could your success express? What divine plan could your achievements support? These questions will transform your relationship with wealth and success, just as they transformed Marcus's. Marcus told me something after 3 months of practicing hit bone nut that revealed the depth of his transformation. Rabbi, yesterday my biggest competitor announced he was entering my most profitable market. 6 months ago, that news would have kept me awake for weeks. Yesterday, I processed the information calmly, made strategic adjustments and slept peacefully. What happened to my anxiety? His question revealed something profound about the relationship between wisdom and worry. Anxiety is not caused by challenging circumstances. Anxiety is caused by approaching challenging circumstances without wisdom. Marcus had developed what I call the wisdom of perspective, the ability to see his daily challenges in their proper context, within the larger patterns of life, business, and existence itself. Let me show you the specific wisdom that silenced Marcus's anxiety, because it can silence yours as well. Marcus had learned to contemplate the temporary nature of all circumstances, both good and bad. His current challenges were temporary. His current successes were temporary. Even his current life was temporary. This was not depressing wisdom, it was liberating wisdom. When you truly understand that everything changes, you stop being devastated by temporary setbacks and stop clinging too tightly to temporary successes. Marcus could face his competitor's challenge with strategic, calm thinking because he understood that this situation, like all others, would evolve and change. He didn't need to solve it permanently, only to respond skillfully. Through constant contemplation of the vastness of creation, Marcus developed an accurate sense of the true scale of his problems. They were real, but small compared to the scope of existence itself. This perspective did not make Marcus careless with his responsibilities. On the contrary, he became more effective at handling them because he no longer wasted energy on panic and overload. When you see your challenges in proportion to the universe itself, you can approach them with the focused attention they deserve, without the excessive anxiety they don't deserve. Marcus came to understand that existence itself operates according to intelligent principles. The same intelligence that keeps the planets in orbit and the seasons in cycle was also at work in his life and circumstances. This didn't mean everything that happened to Marcus was pleasant or easy. It meant that even challenging circumstances could serve purposes greater than his immediate comfort. Purposes that could teach him valuable lessons or develop important strengths. Marcus could face difficulties peacefully because he trusted that even problems could be part of a larger pattern of growth and development. Perhaps most practically, Marcus learned to contemplate his own capacity to handle challenges. Instead of focusing on the magnitude of his problems, he focused on his ability to solve them. Marcus had successfully overcome dozens of business challenges throughout his career. He had survived economic crises, difficult partnerships, and market shifts. He had always found ways to adapt, innovate, and thrive despite obstacles. That track record was not luck. It was proof of his resourcefulness, creativity, and resilience. When new challenges arose, Marcus could face them with confidence because of his proven ability to find solutions. Finally, Marcus learned to contemplate the network of relationships, resources, and opportunities available to him. He did not face his challenges alone. He was part of a larger community of family, friends, partners, and advisors who could offer assistance, perspective, and support. When you regularly contemplate the abundance of help and resources available, challenges seem easier to manage because you remember you don't have to solve everything alone. These 5 forms of wisdom, impermanence, proportion, divine order, personal resourcefulness, and available support, completely transformed Marcus's relationship with anxiety. "Rabbi," he said, "I used to think anxiety was just part of success. I thought that if I wasn't constantly worrying, I wasn't being responsible for my business. Now I see that anxiety was actually making me less effective, not more responsible." Marcus discovered that wisdom doesn't eliminate challenges, but it eliminates the suffering that comes from approaching challenges without perspective, understanding, and trust. Which of these forms of wisdom do you most need to develop? What would your life look like if anxiety no longer controlled your responses to difficult circumstances? 6 months after our first meeting, Marcus came to me with news that revealed the fullness of his transformation. "Rabbi, my colleagues are asking me what happened to me. They say I seem like a completely different person, more decisive, more creative, more effective. But the strangest thing is that I'm working fewer hours and enjoying my work more than I have in years." Marcus had discovered something that seems paradoxical, but is actually natural. When you develop inner peace, your outer performance improves instead of suffering. The restless, anxious version of Marcus was constantly busy, but rarely effective. He spent hours worrying about decisions that could have been made quickly with clarity. He second-guessed himself constantly, wasting energy on doubts and regrets. He worked long hours without focus, confusing activity with productivity. The calm, peaceful version of Marcus was decisive, creative, and efficient. He could make important decisions quickly because his mind was clear and his judgment was no longer clouded by anxiety. He could focus completely on the task at hand because he wasn't distracted by mental noise. He could work fewer hours with better results because his energy was no longer drained by inner conflict. Let me show you exactly how Marcus made this transition from restless to peaceful, because the same transformation is available to you. The old Marcus reacted to circumstances immediately and emotionally. Good news made him euphoric. Bad news made him panic. Unexpected challenges threw him into crisis mode. The new Marcus had learned to pause between stimulus and response. When something happened, whether positive or negative, he took a moment to breathe, considered the situation calmly, and chose his response instead of reacting automatically. That simple shift gave Marcus tremendous power over his emotional state and his decision-making ability. Instead of being controlled by circumstances, he could respond to them skillfully. The old Marcus tried to think about everything at once. His mind jumped from current projects to future possibilities, from past mistakes to potential problems, never settling long enough to reflect deeply on any specific issue. The new Marcus had learned to direct his attention deliberately. When he worked on a specific project, that project received his full attention. When he spent time with family, his family received his full presence. When he made a decision, that decision received his complete consideration. This focused attention made Marcus dramatically more effective in every area of his life. Quality of attention, he discovered, was more important than quantity of time. The old Marcus felt driven by external pressures and internal compulsions. He constantly pushed himself, demanding more from himself and others, never feeling he was doing or achieving enough. The new Marcus felt guided by inner wisdom and clear priorities. Instead of being driven by fear and compulsion, he was guided by purpose and vision. Instead of frantically striving for goals, he steadily walked toward results aligned with his deepest values. The old Marcus was constantly exhausted, despite poor sleep and overwork. Anxiety and inner conflict drained his energy faster than rest and food could restore it. The new Marcus had abundant energy, despite working fewer hours. Peace and alignment generated energy instead of consuming it. When your inner state is calm and your actions are purposeful, you naturally have more vitality and endurance. The old Marcus had become increasingly isolated in his success. His anxiety made him difficult to be around. His impulsiveness made him impatient with others. His focus on accumulation made his relationships feel transactional. The new Marcus enjoyed deeper connections with family, friends, and colleagues. His peace made him pleasant company. His wisdom made him a valuable advisor. His sense of purpose made his relationships feel meaningful and authentic. Marcus learned that the goal is not to eliminate all challenges or to achieve perfect circumstances. The goal is to develop the inner resources that allow you to handle any challenge and benefit from any circumstance. "Rabbi," Marcus said, "I always thought peace would be something I experienced after solving all my problems and achieving all my goals. I never imagined that peace was actually the foundation that would help me solve problems more effectively and achieve goals more efficiently." That realization transformed not only Marcus's business success, but his entire experience of being alive. What would your life look like if you made that same transition from restless to peaceful? Marcus described his transformation to me with words that still give me chills. "Rabbi, for the first time in my adult life, I feel like I'm living from the inside out instead of from the outside in." His words captured something profound about what had happened to him after months of practicing Hit-Bone Nut and developing inner peace. Marcus had found what I call his center, the place of unshakable calm and wisdom that exists within every human being, but that most people never learn to access. Living from the outside in means letting external circumstances determine your internal state. When business is good, you feel good. When challenges arise, you feel anxious. When you hit goals, you feel confident. When you face setbacks, you feel defeated. Living from the inside out means letting your internal state guide your response to external circumstances. Regardless of what happens around you, you remain connected to your deepest source of strength, wisdom, and peace. Marcus had spent most of his career living from the outside in. Every market fluctuation affected his mood. Every business decision generated anxiety. Every competitor's move triggered fear. He was constantly being pushed and pulled by forces beyond his control. Now Marcus lived in his center. He remained fully engaged with his business and committed to his success. But his emotional state and his sense of worth were no longer hostages to external events. Let me show you what Marcus's center looked like and how you can find yours. At Marcus's center was his capacity for clear, calm awareness, not thinking about consciousness, but consciousness itself, the awareness that observes thoughts, feelings, and circumstances without being overwhelmed by them. When Marcus operated from this center, he could see his challenges clearly without being blinded by anxiety. He could feel his emotions without being controlled by them. He could notice his thoughts without being enslaved by them. Marcus's center held the wisdom accumulated through years of contemplation and reflection. He had developed a deep understanding of fundamental truths about life, business, relationships, and purpose. This wisdom wasn't theoretical knowledge. It was practical understanding that grounded his decisions and guided his actions. When Marcus faced new situations, he could draw on this wisdom to respond skillfully instead of merely reacting emotionally. At Marcus's center was his sense of connection to something greater than himself, to divine purpose, to his community, to the larger patterns of existence. That connection gave him perspective on his personal worries and confidence in his ability to handle whatever challenges arose. When you are connected to something bigger than your immediate circumstances, you gain access to strength and resources beyond your individual capacity. Most fundamentally, Marcus's center was characterized by deep, unshakable peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on everything going according to plan, but the robust peace that remains steady regardless of external turbulence. This peace was not passive or inactive. It was dynamic and creative. From this center of peace, Marcus could think more clearly, make better decisions, and act more effectively than he ever could from a state of anxiety and stress. Marcus learned to connect with his center several times a day. Before important meetings, he would spend a few minutes grounding himself in his center. Before major decisions, he would consult his center. When facing challenges, he would respond from his center. It wasn't a long or complicated process. It was as simple as pausing, taking a few deep breaths and asking, what does my wisest, most peaceful self know about this situation? The transformation in Marcus's effectiveness was remarkable. His colleagues noticed he had become more decisive, more creative, more reliable. His family noticed he was more present, more patient, more joyful. But the most significant change was internal. Marcus felt like himself for the first time in years. Not the stress-driven, anxious version of himself he had become, but his authentic self, calm, wise, grounded, alive. "Rabbi," Marcus told me, "I spent so many years trying to build external security while my inner foundation was completely unstable. Now I understand that inner stability is what makes outer success sustainable and meaningful." Marcus had found his center, and from that center, he was able to build a prosperity that enriched his life instead of consuming it. Where is your center? How can you learn to live from the inside out instead of from the outside in? Marcus asked me something during our last formal meeting that revealed just how completely he had internalized the lessons of our months together. "Rabbi, I used to think security meant having enough money to handle any financial emergency. Now I realize true security means having enough inner strength to handle any emergency in life. How can I make sure that strength stays with me?" His question showed me that Marcus understood the most important truth about security. External security is always temporary and partial. Internal security can be permanent and complete. Let me teach you what I taught Marcus about building unshakable inner security, because this is the foundation of all genuine prosperity. Marcus learned that the deepest security comes from understanding fundamental truths about life, not from accumulating resources to protect against life's uncertainties. He understood that all circumstances are temporary. Both challenges and successes eventually change. That understanding made him less fearful of temporary difficulties and less attached to temporary achievements. He understood that he had successfully overcome every challenge he had ever faced. That gave him confidence in his ability to handle whatever new challenges might arise. He understood that he was part of an intelligent universe, operating according to principles far beyond his personal concerns. That helped him trust that even difficult circumstances could serve purposes beyond his immediate understanding. Marcus invested heavily in developing his character, his integrity, wisdom, compassion, and resilience. These inner qualities created a form of security that could never be taken from him. No market crash could destroy his integrity. No competitor could steal his wisdom. No external change could erase his capacity for compassion. No circumstance could remove his resilience. Marcus realized that when you invest in building your character, you are creating assets that appreciate over time and never become worthless. Marcus also learned to see his relationships with family, friends, community, and even with the divine as sources of true security. These connections provided support, perspective, and resources no amount of individual accumulation could match. But Marcus's relationships were secure because they were built on authenticity and mutual service, not on transaction and manipulation. He had learned to be genuinely valuable to the people in his life, which made them genuinely valuable to him. Perhaps most importantly, Marcus found security by aligning his life with a purpose greater than his personal accumulation. When you know why you are here and what you are meant to contribute, you gain a sense of purpose that makes you resilient in the face of any external challenge. Purpose gave Marcus direction when he was confused. motivation when he was discouraged, and peace when he was stressed. Purpose became his greatest source of security. Marcus developed daily practices, hit bone nut, reflection, gratitude, service, that continually renewed his connection to these sources of inner security. These practices ensured that his inner strength remained strong regardless of external circumstances. Marcus realized that inner security, like physical fitness, requires regular maintenance. You can't develop it once and expect it to last forever without practice and ongoing attention. After 18 months of building inner security, Marcus had created something remarkable, a foundation of strength and peace that remained steady no matter what happened in his external circumstances. His business still faced challenges, but those challenges no longer created internal crises. Market conditions still fluctuated, but those fluctuations no longer dictated his emotional state. Competitors still tried to undermine him, but their actions no longer generated anxiety and fear. Marcus had become what I call internally rich, rich in the resources that truly determine the quality of your life: wisdom, peace, purpose, character, and authentic relationships. "Rabbi," Marcus told me, "I always thought wealth was supposed to make me feel secure. I never realized that feeling secure is what makes me truly wealthy." Marcus discovered that when you have unshakable inner security, you can pursue external success without being enslaved by it, enjoy external achievements without depending on them, and face external challenges without being destroyed by them. This is the foundation of all genuine prosperity, security that comes from who you are, not from what you have. How stable is your inner foundation? What would your life look like if your security came from sources that could never be taken away from you? 2 years after Marcus had found his inner peace, he shared something with me that revealed an unexpected result of his transformation. "Rabbi, ever since I stopped being desperate to make money, I've been making more money than ever. Ever since I stopped being afraid of losing what I have, I've gained more than I ever imagined." How is this possible? Marcus had discovered something that seems paradoxical, but is actually natural. Peace doesn't diminish prosperity, it multiplies it. When you act from anxiety, fear, and desperation, you make poor decisions. You accept bad deals out of fear of missing opportunities. You push away potential partners because you're too focused on your own interests. You lose creative solutions because your mind is clouded with worry. When you operate with peace, clarity, and confidence, you make excellent decisions. You can wait for the right opportunities because you're not desperate for any one of them. You attract trustworthy partners because you focus on mutual benefit. You discover innovative solutions because your mind is clear and creative. Let me show you exactly how Marcus's peace multiplied his prosperity in ways he never expected. The anxious Marcus made quick decisions to escape the discomfort of uncertainty. He often accepted deals that weren't in his best interest just to ease the tension of negotiation. The peaceful Marcus was able to sit comfortably with uncertainty while gathering information and carefully considering options. He made decisions based on wisdom rather than emotion, on strategy rather than impulse. This shift drastically improved the quality of Marcus's business decisions and the profitability of his ventures. The anxious Marcus radiated desperation and lack. Potential partners and clients sensed his fear and either avoided him or took advantage of his weakness. The peaceful Marcus radiated confidence and abundance. People were drawn to his calm energy and trustworthy presence. They preferred to do business with someone who seemed steady and reliable. Marcus found that opportunities started coming to him instead of him chasing them frantically. The anxious Marcus approached challenges with tunnel vision, seeing only limited options and focusing mainly on avoiding losses. The peaceful Marcus could view challenges from multiple perspectives and generate creative solutions that often turned problems into opportunities. His calm, clear mind allowed him to find win-win solutions that satisfied everyone involved and created more value for all. The anxious Marcus was focused mainly on short-term gains and quick problem-solving, often at the expense of long-term sustainability. The peaceful Marcus could think strategically about the future, making investments and decisions that would pay dividends for years to come. That long-term perspective led to much more sustainable and ultimately more profitable business practices. Perhaps most surprising of all, the peaceful Marcus became more generous, not less. He regularly shared his resources, knowledge, and opportunities with others. That generosity created a network of loyal relationships, reinforced his reputation for integrity, and generated unexpected opportunities as people looked for ways to return his kindness. Marcus discovered that generosity born of abundance creates more abundance, while accumulation born of scarcity creates more scarcity. The anxious Marcus worked frantically and constantly, but much of his energy was wasted on worry and inner conflict. The peaceful Marcus worked fewer hours but accomplished more, because all his energy was focused and productive. He learned to work with intensity and focus, followed by real rest, instead of living in constant low-grade stress. That rhythm was not only more sustainable, but also more effective, leading to better results with less effort. "Rabbi," Marcus told me, "I always thought anxiety and drive were the same thing. I believed that if I wasn't constantly worried and stressed, I wouldn't be motivated to work hard and achieve great things. But I've learned that anxiety is actually the opposite of motivation. Anxiety scatters your energy and clouds your judgment. True motivation comes from clarity of purpose and confidence in your ability to reach your goals." Marcus discovered that peace is not the enemy of prosperity. It is its greatest ally. With inner peace, you can pursue external success more effectively, enjoy external achievements more fully, and handle external challenges more skillfully. Peace multiplied Marcus's prosperity, not only financially, but in every area that truly matters. His health, his relationships, his sense of purpose, and his joy in being alive. How might your prosperity multiply if you approached it with peace instead of anxiety? What would be possible if you pursued success with confidence instead of desperation? 5 years after our initial correspondence, Marcus wrote me another letter. But this letter was completely different from the first. Instead of a desperate plea, it carried a joyful testimony. "Rabbi, you taught me something that seemed impossible at the time. How to accumulate wealth without fearing its loss. How to achieve success without being terrified of failure. I want to share what this freedom has given me." Marcus had learned to live without fear of loss, and that freedom transformed every aspect of his prosperity and peace. Let me share what Marcus discovered, because this same freedom is available to you. The old Marcus operated from scarcity. There was never enough money, opportunities, or security in the world. Every potential gain required someone else's loss. Every deal was a battle where someone had to lose for him to win. The new Marcus operated from abundance. There was prosperity enough for anyone willing to create genuine value. Every transaction could benefit all parties. Every relationship could be mutually rewarding. This shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset opened doors that fear had kept locked. Marcus found more opportunities, better partnerships, and more fulfilling business relationships than he had ever experienced. The old Marcus made many poor decisions because he feared losing opportunities or not having enough resources to handle future challenges. The new Marcus could calmly evaluate opportunities and turn down deals that didn't align with his values or long-term strategy. He could sacrifice short-term gains in favor of sustainable growth. That patience and selectiveness led to far better results and fewer costly mistakes. The old Marcus was terrified of losing any of his possessions, achievements, or status. That fear kept him from enjoying what he had because he was constantly worried about protecting it. The new Marcus held his possessions lightly. He could enjoy his wealth without being enslaved by it, appreciate his achievements without being defined by them, and use his resources generously without depleting himself in the process. That freedom from attachment turned his wealth into a source of joy instead of anxiety. The old Marcus had tied his identity completely to his external success. Any threat to his wealth felt like a threat to his very existence. The new Marcus knew who he was, regardless of what he owned. His sense of worth was rooted in his character, wisdom, and relationships, not in his net worth. That solid foundation of identity made business challenges feel like problems to be solved, not existential threats to his survival. The old Marcus exhausted himself trying to control every variable that might affect his success. He lived in constant stress because there were always factors beyond his influence. The new Marcus focused his energy on what he could truly control: his decisions, his actions, his responses, and trusted himself to handle whatever arose from factors outside his control. This shift from control to influence eliminated huge amounts of stress and anxiety, while making him more effective where he could actually make a difference. Marcus achieved what had seemed impossible when he first wrote to me: prosperity without anxiety, success without insecurity, wealth without worry. He wasn't careless or reckless with his resources. He was strategic and thoughtful in his business decisions, but he was no longer driven by fear of loss or desperate need for profit. Marcus could take calculated risks because he wasn't afraid of failure. He could be generous because he wasn't afraid of scarcity. He could enjoy his success because he wasn't afraid it would vanish. Most importantly, Marcus learned that the things you truly need, wisdom, character, peace, authentic relationships, can never be lost. They can only be developed and strengthened through life's experiences, including its challenges. Rabbi, Marcus wrote in his letter, I spent so many years building walls around my wealth to protect it from loss. But those same walls also kept me from truly enjoying what I had built. Now I understand that the best protection for what matters most isn't walls, it's wisdom. And wisdom actually grows stronger by facing challenges instead of hiding from them. Marcus discovered that when you're no longer afraid of loss, you're free to pursue gain. When you're no longer desperate for security, you're free to take intelligent risks. When you're no longer enslaved by fear, you're free to build genuine prosperity. That freedom is available to you. The question is, are you ready to stop being controlled by fear of loss and start being guided by the vision of gain? Marcus developed what he called the peace protocol, a simple daily routine that kept his inner calm steady regardless of external circumstances. He shared this protocol with me because he wanted other successful people to have access to the same transformation he had experienced. Let me teach you Marcus's peace protocol, because these simple practices can revolutionize your relationship with prosperity and success. Every morning, before checking any business problems, Marcus spent 15 minutes establishing his inner foundation for the day. He began with 5 minutes of Hitbone Nut, contemplating a fundamental truth about existence that put his daily worries into perspective. Sometimes he reflected on the vastness of the universe. Sometimes he contemplated the intricate intelligence behind creation. Sometimes he focused on his place within the greater purpose of existence. Next, he spent 5 minutes reflecting on gratitude, acknowledging everything he had to be thankful for, from his health and family to the opportunities and challenges that were helping him grow. Finally, he spent 5 minutes setting his intention for the day, not just what he wanted to accomplish, but how he wanted to be while accomplishing it. What kind of character did he want to embody? What values did he want to express? What energy did he want to bring to his interactions? This morning practice ensured that Marcus began each day connected to his center, rather than immediately scattered by external demands. Around midday, Marcus took 5 minutes to reconnect with his center of peace. It wasn't a long meditation, just a pause to check in with himself and realign with his deeper priorities. He asked himself, am I acting from peace or from anxiety right now? Am I making decisions with wisdom or with fear? Am I treating people the way I would want to be treated? If he had slipped into stress or reactivity, he used those 5 minutes to return to his center and face the rest of the day with clarity instead of confusion. Every evening, Marcus spent 10 minutes reviewing his day with honesty and compassion. He acknowledged what had gone well, decisions he was proud of, interactions that had been positive, progress toward meaningful goals. He also acknowledged what could have been better, moments when he reacted with anxiety instead of responding with wisdom, opportunities when he could have been more generous or patient. Most importantly, he extracted lessons from the day's experiences. What had he learned about himself, about business, about relationships? How could he apply those lessons tomorrow? This evening reflection ensured continuous growth and prevented small problems from becoming entrenched patterns. Once a week, Marcus devoted 30 minutes to deeper reflection and renewal. He reviewed his larger goals and priorities, asking, am I moving in the direction I desire? Are my daily actions aligned with my deepest values? What adjustments do I need to make? He also spent time reflecting on his purpose and contribution, asking, how is my prosperity serving something greater than myself? What impact am I having on my community and family? How can I increase the positive difference I'm making? Marcus discovered that this daily practice produced compounded benefits over time. Each day of practicing peace made accessing peace the next day easier. Each week of consistency strengthened his ability to remain calm in the face of challenges. After a year of daily practice, Marcus realized that peace had become his natural state rather than something he had to strive to achieve. Anxiety and stress became temporary visitors rather than permanent residents. Rabbi, Marcus told me, I used to think successful people didn't have time for practices like meditation and reflection. Now I see that successful people can't afford not to have these practices. The few minutes I spend each day maintaining my inner peace save me hours of anxiety, poor decisions, and wasted energy. Marcus learned that peace is not something that happens to you. It's something you cultivate through consistent choices and daily practices. These same practices can transform your relationship with prosperity and success. The question is, are you willing to invest a little time each day to build the inner foundation that makes all external success meaningful and sustainable? 10 years after his first desperate letter, Marcus had become living proof that it is possible to be both extremely successful and deeply peaceful. His business had grown beyond what he had ever imagined, but more importantly, his character had grown along with his wealth. Marcus had achieved what I call integrated prosperity, success that enriches your soul instead of compromising it. Wealth that serves your values instead of replacing them. Achievements that build character instead of corroding it. Let me show you what Marcus's integrated prosperity looked like, because it reveals what becomes possible when you align external success with inner development. Marcus no longer accumulated money just for the sake of having more. Every business decision was evaluated not only for its profit potential, but also for its alignment with his deeper values and purposes. He chose partnerships based on shared principles, not just shared profits. He developed products and services that genuinely improved people's lives, not just generated revenue. He built his business in ways that strengthened his community, supported his employees, and honored his integrity. This purposeful approach to building wealth made Marcus more successful, not less. Customers preferred buying from someone whose motives they trusted. Employees worked harder for someone whose mission they believed in. Partners sought him out because they knew he would treat them with honor. Marcus developed the ability to make important decisions with peace and clarity instead of pressure and anxiety. He could sit with uncertainty while gathering information. He could consider multiple options without becoming paralyzed by over-analysis. He could commit to decisions without being haunted by constant second-guessing. This calm decision-making drastically improved the quality of Marcus's choices and the results of his actions. When your mind is at peace, you can think more clearly, see more options, and choose more wisely. Marcus had learned to pursue success in every area of life simultaneously, instead of sacrificing some areas to excel in others. His wealth was growing, but so were his health, his relationships, his wisdom, and his character. He worked hard when work was needed, but also rested fully when rest was needed. He focused intensely on business when appropriate, but was fully present with his family when at home. He pursued financial goals, but also cultivated spiritual growth. This balanced approach made Marcus's success sustainable in ways that accumulation alone never could. Marcus became genuinely generous, not only with his money, but also with his time, attention, knowledge, and opportunities. He regularly mentored young entrepreneurs, shared business insights with colleagues, and used his influence to create opportunities for others. This generosity was not motivated by guilt or obligation. It flowed naturally from his sense of abundance and purpose. Marcus understood that true wealth multiplies when shared wisely. His generosity created a network of loyalty and goodwill that supported his business in ways no amount of advertising or marketing ever could. Perhaps most remarkably, Marcus learned to enjoy the process of building wealth rather than merely endure it as a means to an end. His work became a creative expression rather than an anxious struggle. He approached business challenges as puzzles to be solved rather than crises to survive. He saw competition as motivation to innovate rather than threats to fear. He viewed setbacks as opportunities for learning rather than reasons for despair. This joy in the work itself made Marcus more creative, more resilient, and more successful than when his success had been driven by fear and desperation. Marcus developed a rhythm of intense focus followed by complete rest, strategic planning followed by decisive action, ambitious goal setting balanced with appreciation of the present moment. This sustainable approach eliminated the burnout and anxiety that had once characterized his career, while increasing his productivity and effectiveness. Marcus proved that you don't have to sacrifice peace to achieve prosperity, and you don't have to sacrifice prosperity to maintain peace. With wisdom and practice, you can have both. Rabbi, Marcus told me during our last meeting, I used to think I had to choose between being successful and being peaceful. Now I understand that peace is what makes success sustainable, and success without peace isn't really success. Marcus became living proof that purposeful, peaceful prosperity is not only possible, it is the only way to build wealth that truly serves your life instead of consuming it. My friend, as I finish sharing Marcus's story with you, I want you to understand something crucial. His transformation is not exclusive to him. The peace he found is not only available to wealthy merchants in medieval Spain. Everything Marcus learned, every practice he developed, every insight that turned his anxiety into peace, all of it is available to you right now, regardless of your current circumstances. You don't need to be rich to begin building inner peace. You don't need perfect circumstances to begin practicing Hitbone Nut. You don't need to solve all your problems before you connect with the unshakable calm that already exists within you. Marcus's journey began with a desperate letter written in the middle of the night by a man who had everything except what he needed most. Your journey can begin right now with the simple decision to stop chasing peace in external things and start cultivating it in the only place it can truly be found, inside yourself. Let me be direct with you about what this means. The anxiety you feel about your finances, your future, your success, that anxiety is not caused by your circumstances. It is caused by your relationship with your circumstances. The sleepless nights worrying about what you might lose are not protecting anything you have. They are stealing the peace you could be enjoying right now. The endless mental spinning around problems that may never happen is not preparing you for challenges. It is draining you so much that you are less prepared to face the real challenges when they do arise. Marcus discovered that the peace he desperately sought was always available to him. He simply didn't know how to access it. The same is true for you. I want you to imagine that you are writing a letter to your future self, the version of you who has learned how to build wealth without anxiety, achieve success without losing peace, and face challenges without being consumed by stress. What would that version of you want to say to your present self? What wisdom would he share? What practices would he recommend? What perspective would he offer on the worries that keep you awake at night? That peaceful and prosperous version of you is not a fantasy. He is your potential. He is who you become when you learn the same lessons Marcus learned, when you develop the same practices he developed, when you connect to the same sources of strength and wisdom that transformed his life. The path Marcus walked is now clearly marked. Begin each morning by connecting to something greater than your immediate worries, through contemplating the wonder and intelligence of creation. Develop the practice of Hit Bonanut, not as an escape from reality, but as a connection to the deepest truths about reality. Learn to observe your thoughts without being enslaved by them. Practice seeing your challenges in the right perspective, within the vastness of existence. Build your security on your character and wisdom, not only on your wealth and accomplishments. Most importantly, remember that true prosperity is not having more than you need, but needing less than you have, and using what you have to serve purposes greater than yourself. Marcus's story proves that it is possible to be successful and peaceful, wealthy and wise, prosperous and full of purpose. His transformation shows that you don't have to choose between achievement and serenity. You can build achievement on the foundation of serenity. The letter I wrote to Marcus changed his life because he was ready to receive what it offered. This message can change your life if you are ready to apply what it contains. The question is not whether you have enough money to be at peace. The question is whether you have enough wisdom to be at peace with the money you have. The question is not whether your circumstances are perfect enough for inner peace. The question is whether you are ready to develop the inner peace that makes any circumstance manageable. Right now, in this very moment, you have the same choice Marcus had when he received my letter. You can continue chasing external peace through accumulation and control, or you can begin building internal peace through understanding and wisdom. You can continue seeking security in your portfolio, or you can begin developing security in your character. You can continue measuring your worth by your wealth, or you can begin building a worth that no market can touch and no circumstance can destroy. Marcus made his choice, and it transformed every aspect of his prosperity and peace. Your choice is waiting for you. The letter to your future peaceful and prosperous self begins now. The only question is, are you ready to write it? And if you want to continue learning with me, subscribe to the channel. It's simple. Right below this video, there's a red button that says subscribe. Just click it, and right beside it, there's a little bell. Click that too, so you'll receive the next teachings. Do it now so you don't miss a single one.